this great inheritance and of the duties and heavy responsibilities of sovereignty, which have now passed to my beloved daughter.
For years, Prince Philip's final private instructions remained sealed behind palace locks, protected from curiosity, rivalry, and fear. But when the envelope was finally opened in a silent Windsor meeting, one sentence changed the atmosphere instantly. Catherine could access his personal fortune. Camilla could not. Charles stopped moving. William stared at the page, and the woman at the center of the exclusion was about to learn that Philip's last judgment had survived him. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Charles read the sentence again, as though a different pace might soften its meaning. It did not. The private letter had been kept apart from Prince Philip's ordinary estate papers, the documents used to divide property after death, and its trustees had been ordered to wait until a fixed date before breaking the seal. That delay prevented grief, pressure, or royal authority from changing what the Duke had decided. William watched his father lower the page without speaking. Across the table, Catherine sat rigidly, her hands locked together, as the solicitor explained the decision. She had been granted supervised access to Philip's personal fortune, private archives, and family assets held outside crown control. Camilla had been expressly denied any right to enter, direct, or influence that protected circle. Catherine felt no triumph. She understood that this authority had arrived not as a gift, but as a test, and that accepting it could place her against the Queen. William saw the strain in her face, and leaned closer, yet he said nothing. The future king knew one careless word could turn a private instruction into a family war. The exclusion was deliberate. Philip had not forgotten Camilla, or left her unnamed. He had written Catherine's name clearly, describing her as the person permitted to review and protect what he had guarded in life. That choice made every attempt to call the decision an oversight impossible. Then the solicitor reached into the case and removed a second envelope. He explained that it contained Philip's handwritten account of why he had chosen Catherine and what he feared might happen if the wrong person gained influence over the fortune. Charles raised one hand before the seal could be broken. His wife was not in the room, and he refused to let the most painful judgment of her royal life be revealed in her absence. But before Camilla could confront the judgment left behind by a man who never fully trusted her, the palace had to face the tangled loyalties connecting Philip, Catherine, Charles, and the woman he had deliberately shut out. The letter concerned money, but its true power came from something far more painful: recognition. For Catherine, it represented trust from a formidable royal figure who rarely offered praise without purpose. For Camilla, it felt like a humiliation preserved beyond the grave. For William, it became a burden placed upon his marriage. And for Charles, it reopened the oldest wound of his life, the fear that his father's approval had always belonged more easily to others. Catherine had never tried to win Prince Philip through flattery. She earned his respect slowly, through discipline, silence, and the ability to stand firm during difficult family moments without turning private pain into public performance. The Duke, a senior royal known for valuing duty above comfort, believed those qualities mattered because the monarchy survived only when personal ambition remained smaller than agenda. To him, she had shown that restraint was not weakness. It was control. Camilla carried a different burden. Although she had become queen, the wife of the reigning monarch, she remained alert to every sign that acceptance inside the family had limits. Public ceremonies had given her status, but private trust was something no title could guarantee. Philip's letter struck at that hidden fear. It suggested that behind the formal smiles and shared appearances, one senior figure had never allowed her fully inside. Catherine sat beside William in a private room, her fingers tightly clasped. She told him she did not want anyone to treat the decision as a victory over Camilla. The inheritance, she said, felt less like a reward and more like a test she could easily fail. William listened carefully, knowing that his wife's success could become another woman's humiliation if the family allowed resentment to shape the story. Charles stood alone beside his desk, holding the letter without reading it again. He felt loyalty toward his father's final wishes, yet every line also wounded the woman he had spent years defending. The king understood that Camilla would not see an administrative decision. She would see rejection, preserved in writing and protected from challenge. William remembered a private conversation with Philip years earlier. His grandfather had warned him that royal wealth became dangerous when people confused stewardship with ownership. At the time, the words had sounded like a general lesson. Now they felt like preparation. Camilla noticed the silence immediately. The Windsor meeting had ended, yet Charles had ignored her calls. She asked her private secretary to confirm who had attended, and when Catherine's name was mentioned, the Queen's expression hardened. Catherine rose to leave before Camilla arrived, but Charles stopped her. He asked her to remain, and as the four figures moved toward the same guarded room, an older memory was beginning to surface. The precise moment when Philip decided that Catherine could be trusted with what Camilla would never be allowed to touch. Philip's decision had not emerged from vague dislike or ancient resentment. It began with one specific evening, one overheard conversation, and one reaction he never forgot. During a private family banquet, a discussion about royal property turned unexpectedly personal. Camilla spoke with confidence. Catherine chose silence. Philip watched them both. By the time the candles burned low, he had seen enough to make a judgment that would remain hidden until after his death. Charles had expected the Sandringham gathering to remain calm, but the conversation changed when the family began discussing privately owned royal keepsakes, investments, and letters that would eventually pass to another generation. Sandringham was the royal family's privately owned country estate, meaning it belonged to the family rather than the state, and the question of who controlled its personal treasures carried both emotional and financial power. William listened as his grandfather argued that royal possessions should protect continuity, memory, and family stability, not become prizes in a struggle between households. Camilla answered with confidence. She said the monarch's spouse should automatically supervise disputed family belongings, because rank brought responsibility. Catherine remained quiet until Philip asked what she believed. She chose her words carefully, telling him that some objects belong to memory rather than status, and should be protected for people not yet born. The table fell silent. Charles glanced toward his wife, while William immediately sensed that the exchange had gone deeper than property. Later that evening, Philip asked Catherine to meet him alone in the library. He questioned whether she wanted greater authority within the family. She answered that authority meant nothing unless people trusted the person carrying it, and that power taken too eagerly could destroy the duty it was meant to protect. The Duke studied her without offering praise, yet his expression changed. Catherine had passed a test she had never known she was taking. Camilla entered after the princess left. She asked Philip directly whether he still considered her an outsider despite her marriage to Charles. He refused to comfort her. Titles, he said, could settle protocol, the formal rules governing royal rank and conduct, but they could never manufacture trust. The queen consort carried those words away like a private wound. The following morning, Philip summoned his solicitor for a documented legal meeting. He dictated special access instructions, placed Catherine's name above every other candidate, and added a clear restriction, preventing Camilla from controlling or influencing the fortune. His handwritten attachment later identified the Sandringham conversation as the point of no return. When that buried account was finally carried into the Windsor room, Camilla was no longer facing an impersonal legal restriction. She was about to confront Catherine across a table and hear exactly why Philip had chosen between them. Camilla entered expecting an explanation. What she found was Catherine seated beside William, Charles standing near the window, and Prince Philip's letter placed at the center of the table like a verdict. No aides remained. No courtiers could soften the language. When Charles finally said that Catherine had been granted access to Philip's personal fortune while Camilla had been denied it, the queen did not look at her husband. She looked directly at Catherine. Charles had dismissed everyone except the family and the solicitor. The private Windsor meeting left no institutional protection, meaning there were no officials present to absorb blame or reshape painful words into safe palace language. Every person in that room had to face the decision as a husband, a wife, a son, or a future monarch. That made the restriction more dangerous. It was no longer simply about money. It had become a judgment of character. The solicitor read the terms aloud. Catherine could inspect, preserve, and approve the use of Philip's designated private holdings, the personal assets he had separated from property belonging to the crown. Camilla could not request entry, issue instructions, or influence any decision involving them. The wording was precise. There was no hidden path around it. Camilla asked Catherine whether she had known before the seal was broken. The princess answered that she had known nothing, and had never asked for such authority. Her voice remained calm, but the queen heard that composure as superiority. She pushed her chair backward, and demanded to know why the woman receiving everything looked as though she were the one being punished. Charles stepped forward. He told his wife that the choice belonged to his father, not Catherine. Camilla turned on him immediately. She asked whether he intended to defend a dead man, distrust more fiercely than the dignity of the woman still standing beside him. The king tried to answer, but William opened the handwritten attachment before another wound could be delivered. William read Philip's documented explanation. His grandfather had written that Catherine showed loyalty without demanding ownership, while Camilla too often treated closeness to the crown as a right to influence whatever stood near it. The words landed hard. The prince paused, yet the queen ordered him to continue. Camilla demanded that Catherine reject the authority at once. Catherine refused. She said she could not erase Philip's final wish, merely to make the room more comfortable. It was the first open refusal between them, and neither woman looked away. Camilla left without another word, closing the door with deliberate force. Charles followed, and promised that he would examine whether the restriction could be challenged. Yet Charles would soon discover that affection, rank, and royal power could not simply overturn what Philip had constructed, because control of the repercussion rested with guardians who answered to neither the king nor the queen. Charles possessed the crown, but Philip had anticipated the possibility that royal pressure might follow his death. The fortune was not left exposed to a single signature or emotional appeal. It was protected through trustees, private conditions, and a final safeguard designed to resist even the sovereign. When Charles entered the legal chamber expecting room for compromise, an elderly trustee opened Philip's file and informed the king that the decision could not be reversed by command. Charles took his seat slowly, refusing to show how deeply the words had struck him. Philip had separated the designated fortune from assets handled through ordinary royal channels and placed it inside an independent private trust, a legal arrangement in which appointed guardians control property according to written instructions rather than the wishes of the monarch. That structure mattered because neither family pressure nor royal rank could easily break it. His father had not merely expressed a preference, he had built a wall around it. Catherine listened as the trustees explained the limits of her authority. She could not spend the fortune as she wished, or treat it as a personal inheritance. Her access would be supervised and restricted to preserving investments, private letters, family heirlooms, historical archives, and charitable reserves according to Philip's stated principles. The responsibility carried influence, but it also carried risk. One careless decision could make her appear greedy, while one refusal could hand the burden directly to William. Charles asked whether an accommodation could be created to spare Camilla further humiliation. He suggested allowing the Queen to review selected records without giving her formal control. The lead trustee closed the folder before answering. Any exception, he said, would violate Philip's explicit intention and weaken every safeguard the Duke had placed around the trust. The king reached for his pen, then stopped. A handwritten note beside the restriction declared that sentiment must never replace judgment. Charles recognized the phrase immediately. His father had used those same words during their hardest disagreements, whenever emotion threatened to overpower duty. For one painful moment, the monarch could almost hear Philip speaking across the table. Catherine asked what would happen if she declined. The answer was immediate. She could refuse, but she could not transfer her authority to Camilla or nominate the Queen as her replacement. Control would pass to William, preserving the exclusion exactly as Philip intended. Then the trustees produced a dated memorandum. It warned that Charles might try to protect his wife from the emotional consequences, but a future sovereign must separate private loyalty from inherited responsibility. The king fell silent. His objection had been predicted before he made it. Catherine received 48 hours to decide. She gathered the acceptance papers, knowing her signature would turn a private judgment into a living reality. As Catherine carried the acceptance papers away from the legal chamber, Camilla was already experiencing the first consequences of exclusion, and one small change inside the palace made the new balance of power impossible to ignore. The fallout did not begin with a public announcement. It began with a locked cabinet. A palace archivist approached Camilla outside Philip's former study and quietly explained that access protocols had changed. Her name was no longer sufficient. Catherine's authorization was now required. For a woman who had spent years securing her place inside the monarchy, the refusal landed with brutal precision. Camilla stared at the unopened door, then asked the question no one wanted to answer. Has she accepted? Camilla received no direct answer. Philip's private archive, investment records, correspondence, and selected possessions had been placed under temporary restrictions, while Catherine considered the stewardship, meaning the formal responsibility to protect and manage assets for someone else, rather than own them freely. Senior palace employees had also received written instructions stating that no request involving those holdings could be approved through Charles or the Queen alone. The order mattered because it changed daily palace authority before Catherine had even signed her name. Camilla dismissed her aide with a quiet gesture and remained alone outside the study. Anger came first, then humiliation. She pressed one hand against the locked door, knowing staff members who once stepped aside for fur were now required to ask another woman for permission. Becoming queen had brought ceremony and rank, but Philip's safeguards had exposed the painful limit of both. Charles found her later in their private rooms. Camilla told him that his father had reduced her entire royal life to a warning written after death. The king reached for her, but she moved away. She asked why he could not protect her when he possessed the crown, and his silence gave her the answer she feared. His power could command a household. It could not command the trust of a dead man. The inventory deepened the danger. A documented list prepared by Philip's archivists identified private letters written to Queen Elizabeth II, including his thoughts about the monarchy's future and the character of those standing nearest to the throne. One entry drew Camilla's attention immediately, a sealed letter written shortly after her marriage to Charles. Camilla became fixed on that document. She feared Philip had recorded a judgment harsh enough to shape how future generations remembered her, turning old suspicion into permanent history. Charles promised to seek access, but both knew his name alone was no longer enough. William found Catherine seated alone with the unsigned acceptance papers before her. She lifted the pen, then stopped. The prince expected hesitation, but she had already chosen her next step. Before signing, she asked him to arrange a private meeting with Camilla, without Charles, trustees, aides, or anyone capable of softening the truth. The fortune had created an institutional divide, but Catherine understood that no legal clause could settle the human wound beneath it, and the two women were now moving toward a conversation with nowhere left to hide. There were no advisors in the room, no husbands waiting to interrupt, and no official document between them. Catherine and Camilla sat opposite one another, with only Philip's sealed archive nearby. For the first time, the conflict was stripped of rank. Camilla was not speaking as queen, and Catherine was not answering as the future king's wife. They were two women, confronting the damage caused by a dead man's judgment, and the choices still available to the living. Catherine had chosen a small sitting room at Windsor, and insisted that neither Charles nor William attend. She believed honesty would remain impossible, while both women could hide behind their husbands, their titles, or the palace officials trained to soften conflict. The silence between them carried years of suspicion. One wrong sentence could deepen the divide, but one truthful answer might stop it from consuming the entire family. Catherine spoke first. She told Camilla she intended to accept the stewardship, the legal responsibility to protect and manage Philip's designated assets without owning them freely. She would follow his instructions, preserve the fortune, and prevent the dispute from becoming a weapon inside the monarchy. The princess insisted that she wanted no personal victory, yet the queen did not immediately believe her. Camilla finally admitted that the money meant almost nothing. What wounded her was Philip's belief that she could not be trusted. She had spent years earning a place beside Charles, surviving public rejection and private doubt, only to discover that one of the family's strongest figures had preserved his suspicion beyond death. Catherine refused to offer false comfort. She acknowledged that Philip's words were severe and that his judgment had caused real pain. But she warned Camilla that challenging the decision would allow that judgment to define her, publicly, forever. Fighting for access would make the exclusion look justified. Then Catherine opened the document the Queen had feared most. With written permission from the trustees, she showed her Philip's post-marriage letter. He criticized Camilla's hunger for acceptance and her instinct to treat recognition as something rank should guarantee. Yet he also wrote that genuine service, carried out without demands, could eventually outweigh the past. Camilla read the passage twice. Catherine promised to protect personal sections from exploitation and consult her on family history, wherever Philip's rules allowed. But she would not break the restriction or pretend the Duke had chosen differently. Dignity was possible. Access was not. Camilla remained silent for a long moment. Then she told Catherine to sign the acceptance papers. By the time Catherine signed her name, the battle inside Windsor had reached its turning point. Yet beyond the gates, the first details were escaping, and the public would soon transform a private reckoning into a national judgment. The palace hoped to release a controlled statement about private stewardship. Instead, Britain awoke to a headline that turned Philip's final instruction into a royal earthquake. Catherine had been trusted, Camilla had been excluded. Within hours, broadcasters dissected every word. Crowds gathered outside Windsor, and old arguments about loyalty, marriage, and legitimacy returned with new force. What had begun in a sealed envelope was now being judged by millions who had never entered the room. Buckingham Palace confirmed that Catherine had accepted responsibility for a protected collection of Prince Philip's personal assets. The statement described stewardship as the duty to preserve and manage property according to another person's wishes, rather than treat it as unrestricted ownership. Officials emphasized continuity, family memory, and respect for the Duke's instructions. They hoped careful language would calm the story. Then, a leaked legal summary destroyed that plan. Camilla could not inspect, direct, or influence the designated fortune. The restriction was explicit, and the public immediately understood its emotional meaning. This was no ordinary inheritance. One woman had received Philip's confidence, while the Queen had been kept outside it. Charles sat beside his wife, as a broadcaster called the decision Philip's final vote of confidence in Catherine. The king switched off the television before the discussion could continue. Camilla asked him to leave it off. She had already heard enough to know that every channel would compare her years of struggle with the princess's reputation for restraint. Catherine faced a different kind of pain. Supporters gathered outside Kensington Palace to celebrate her, but their praise felt sharpened by another woman's humiliation. She told William that the triumphal reaction seemed cruel. The prince reminded her that accepting duty did not make her responsible for the comparisons others chose to make. Still, she knew public admiration could become a weapon even when she never raised it. The next morning delivered the image the palace had feared. A major newspaper placed Catherine across its front page beneath the words, Philip's chosen guardian. A smaller photograph of Camilla appeared below the line, "The Queen left out." The contrast turned a private wound into a national symbol. Windsor soon became the center of that judgment. Crowds gathered along the long walk, the broad ceremonial route leading toward the castle, carrying flowers for Philip and handwritten signs praising Catherine's restraint. During a live broadcast, One woman declared, "He trusted the one who never demanded to be trusted." Camilla heard the quote through a recorded news briefing. She did not argue. Instead, she asked Charles to approve a personal statement, accepting Philip's wishes. The public had already chosen its symbols, but the monarchy's true verdict would not be found in headlines or applause. It would be revealed in the final decisions made by Catherine, Camilla, Charles, and William, once the noise faded. In the end, Prince Philip's sealed letter did not crown a winner or destroy a queen. It forced 4 people to confront truths that titles had allowed them to avoid. Catherine learned that trust could become a burden. Camilla discovered that acceptance could not be demanded retroactively. Charles faced the limits of his power, and William saw the future monarchy tested before it reached him. The fortune remained protected, but the family carrying its consequences had changed forever. Catherine entered the trustees' chamber and signed the stewardship document without celebration. She placed Philip's letter beside it and stated that every decision would follow his written conditions, not personal preference, family pressure, or palace politics. Stewardship meant holding and protecting assets for a stated purpose, rather than treating them as personal property, and she understood why that distinction mattered. The fortune would preserve the Duke's private archives, support selected causes connected to service and youth development, and protect family objects intended for future generations instead of private display. Camilla ended the challenge through a carefully written personal statement approved by Charles. She recognized Philip's right to decide the future of his private property and confirmed that she would respect the arrangement. Alone afterward, the Queen removed her reading glasses and admitted to her husband that fighting Catherine would only have made the rejection permanent. Defeat still hurt, but restraint allowed her to keep something anger would have destroyed: dignity. Charles later met Catherine privately and told her he would not interfere with the trust. The king acknowledged that his father's decision had wounded his wife, yet he finally accepted that kingship could not be used to rewrite every painful family judgment. His duty was not to erase the past. It was to prevent private pain from weakening the crown. Catherine then made her first decisive choice. She ordered Philip's most personal correspondence sealed for a fixed historical period, preventing its sensational publication during Camilla's lifetime. The restriction proved that access had not made the princess vindictive. She could have allowed the letters to deepen her authority, but she used that authority to protect the woman Philip had excluded. William understood the deeper purpose at last. The fortune had never been the true test. Philip had created a moment that would reveal whether Catherine could hold power without exploiting it, and whether Camilla could face rejection without damaging the monarchy. Both women had been judged by what they did after the letter opened. Catherine emerged not as the Queen's conqueror, but as the guardian Philip believed the monarchy would need. Camilla remained queen, yet accepted that rank could not command private trust. Charles protected his marriage without violating his father's wishes, while William watched duty defeat resentment. Philip's final message was unmistakable. Legitimacy rests not in possession, but in protecting what one has been trusted to hold. And with the letter returned to its case, the signatures completed, and the final challenge withdrawn, Prince Philip's fortune ceased to be a source of conflict and became his last enduring lesson to the monarchy. Trust must be earned, authority must be restrained, and duty must always outlive pride. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.